Hey friend, welcome back to the Vision Driven Health Podcast, your go-to show for learning how to create healthy habits that last in partnership with the God who created you. This episode is for my comadres, the ladies who are like me. We take it all on. We try to make it happen. We say yes, and despite the cost, it gets done. We're on the go most of the time. We have those moments of impatience or extra stress or trigger or, general meltdown. But by and large, we're almost always juggling numerous responsibilities at once, and we still get it done. And if you're like me, you might be in a place where you know you do a lot, you know you're busy, and you know it probably would be good to slow down, but you haven't. Because you gotta get the stuff done. Well, today's guest shares her story of immense loss and tragedy, followed by her propensity to take on too much at the expense of her health. The insights God has revealed to her are so helpful for all of us, providing very practical and specific ways we can partner with God to minimize stress and maximize our rest and trust in God. I will give a trigger warning. There is infant loss in the story shared today. It is not shared without hope and the testimony of how God moved amidst this woman's life. So if you're down, please proceed as you feel able to. Without further ado, let's get to it. Do you find yourself struggling to consistently implement healthy habits? Do you lack energy, confidence, and motivation because of stress, overwhelm, and shame for having not gotten it together by now? Friend, there is hope and grace for your health. Hey, I'm Robin Ryan McDonald, host of the Vision Driven Health Podcast. I'm a follower of Jesus, a wife, a mama of two, and a seminarian turned health coach. And I'm so excited that you're here. I found myself in my early 20s captive to cravings and convenience, 20 pounds heavier, super tired, with a face full of acne. I could not figure out how to maintain healthy habits until I discovered the power of aligning my choices with God's vision. 10 years and 2 kids later, by the grace of God, I'm still prioritizing my health and feeling amazing. If you are over quick fixes and are ready to feel good in your own skin, then grab a giant water bottle and let's dive on in. For those of us on the go, I think there's a lot to be said about grounding our identities in Jesus. A major aspect of that is taking hold of what's true about who you are as God's beloved. To support you in this, my team and I created the Confidently His 5-day devotional. In it, you'll find a daily excerpt of encouragement along with scripture to direct you to the heart of God. To get this totally free, go to visiondrivenhealth.com/resources. All right, friend, we have another incredible guest today. We have Debbie Simmons. She is a nonprofit CEO, international speaker, and best-selling author of The Heart of Legacy, Living a Focused, Faithful, and Fearless Life. Amen. Her journey of purpose began through unimaginable grief after losing her quadruplets, leading her and her husband to adopt 9 children, many with trauma backgrounds. She now leads Anchor Point, a Christ-centered nonprofit that empowers families in crisis, and also runs Debbie Simmons LLC, where she coaches leaders and mission-driven women to live on purpose and build legacy. Debbie is passionate about helping others go from stuck to unstuck by finding their next best step. Having battled burnout and emotional exhaustion, she's now on a mission to help women avoid the silent drain of stress, which it is, that steals joy, health, and impact. With faith and practical strategy, she empowers women to steward their health, callings, and influence with clarity and courage. I am so grateful and excited to have you on the show, Debbie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time talking about this topic.
Absolutely. And I would love to hear, obviously it's in your bio there, but if you
Mhm.
could just share a little bit more, how did you end up in this work? It sounds like you've created so many incredible things and made so many amazing choices in your life that have served so many. How did you kind of come upon where you're at right now?
Yeah, that's a great question because we all have stories, right? And we don't always tell them, but we should learn to tell them because that helps with stress. My when I was a young teenager, I had this crazy dream to be this young grandma,
Mm,
and I knew that I had to find a guy, fall in love, get married, have children, and then I could like be this young grandma. So
cute.
I just had this cool dream, and I could get things done. So I went about it, and you know what? Found the guy, fell in love, got married. Then we ended up many, many years of infertility. Ultimately, got pregnant. Thought we were pregnant with twins. Then there was an attempted miscarriage, and I found out there was quads. And it really, really taught us to really value how we make it to the next day and to live in the present. Because I could have I did at one time looked ahead, and I was like, how am I going to pay for college? And how am I going to pay for this? And my mom's like, can you just focus on today?
Yeah.
Because you can't handle, and when we look far ahead like that, we pick up anxiety and worry, right? And
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
as we went through this, our goal was to get them to 30 weeks. And at 26 weeks, my sac ruptured for one of the babies. And
Mm.
next morning, that little baby came, and they put him in my arms, and I held him as he drifted off into eternity. And
Ah,
we thought maybe I would be able to carry the other three. So it just depended on what my body did. And we waited. They did some blood work, and I got very, very sick. And they said that I had to induce the other ones. And Josh, Nate, and Chris came a while later, and same thing. They went into my arms, and I held them as they drifted off into eternity. And, I clearly remember that night. You go to the hospital pregnant, hoping to have celebrations, and here I am trying to figure out how do you do funerals. And
mm,
I just could not figure out any other way to get through this without just I was like, God, I don't know where else to turn. I am a girl that can figure everything out, and I have this passion for kids and young grandma, and this just seems to have blown up. I don't know how to get through this. And the number one question that you and I kind of ask when we're stuck like that is we generally start with the question of why.
yeah.
Why me? Why now? Why my boys? Why
Mm-hmm.
this? And you know what? I was very into that question that night. And
Mm,
I was like, I don't understand. And if God Himself would have stood in front of me that night or anybody else and given me the answer to why,
mm-hmm.
what I realized is that it would never satisfy.
Hmm.
It'll never bring my boys back. It'll never
Right.
solve pain. It wouldn't do any of that. And so God just said, you have to give me your why question. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is my last thing. This is all I have to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is gone. And he's like, give it to me. And I realized that it's a stuck question. And I don't want to be stuck.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, God, I'll give you my why question. And then I'm like, now what do I do? I'm like, how do you get through this? And he's like,
Yeah.
ask me the question, how do I survive?
Hmm.
And that's the question I began asking is I was like, how do I survive this? And it came down to breathing and taking the next best step. And I would just take the next best step I could come up with. God would meet me. He would shine the light at my feet, and I would find the next best step and do this. And this is how I walked through healing because healing is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And as I continue to walk, I got better and better and better. It didn't always go forward, but if I backed up a little bit and had a bad day, that's okay. I
Mm-hmm.
just continued to figure out what the next best step was. And then as I went further, what I found was I was doing pretty good. And I was like, God, I don't want to, I want to live. I want to have joy again.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to sing. I want to be able to smile and laugh and do all those things. And I said, so how can I go from not just surviving? I want to thrive.
Yeah.
God is a redeemer of stories. And I said, I want you to redeem this story so that I can thrive. And that led to actually working with women who had lost children and leading grief groups. That took us on the wild and wonderful journey of adopting. It
Mm.
was through that he birthed Anchor Point out of that, the ministry that we work with families and, you know, we see thousands of people every year impacted by that. And then, you know, he called me to write the book and start speaking my story more and telling it to the public. And all of those things came through that very hard season. And I just, I wouldn't wish that season on anyone, but he really has used that and redeemed that to be a blessing to others as we go through this. And I think sometimes we forget that our time here is very short,
Mhm. Mhm.
eternity. And so I will be with my boys one day. Um,
Yeah.
and I did get to become a young grandma because I have 15 grandkids now. It just wasn't the way I saw the journey, right? And so
Yeah.
that is what's led me to do the things that I do and to find myself in other stressful situations that we're going to talk about. But that's kind of how I've gone through that journey.
Yeah. Gosh, I really appreciate you sharing that, Debbie. And God is so cool. He is the great redeemer, and the way he takes the most horrible, tragic things, like your story, just like wrenches my heart to hear,
Hmm.
like, and I know so many women, and it almost seems more prevalent now, but miscarriage just seems to be rampant, and
Hmm.
just in our world, there's so many crazy, hard things happening. We're we're dealing with our own grief. We're dealing with the chaos of our world. Like there's
Hmm.
so much, and that question and shift from why
Hmm.
to how do I
Yes.
is so powerful.
Hmm.
Um, and yet, I know when we were chatting and looking at, our conversation today, you mentioned that stress literally almost took you out of your calling. So, I mean, what you've just described, like this is sounds like such a fruitful ministry and calling that you have. But what kind of has happened in more recent days where God had to meet you in a new challenge, a new dynamic?
Yeah, well, we would first of all we'd say nine kids is not a very calm place, and
Yeah.
it's a fun place. And my kids are adopted, so my kids have a lot of trauma in their histories, and so dealing with maladaptive behaviors and things like that. So it can be, that whole scenario can be kind of stressful. And
Right.
I like to say what somebody asked me, they were telling me about like PTSD, and
Hmm.
I'm like, I know my problem. I got TSD. I got traumatic stress disorder all the time, and it's not
Yeah.
post anything.
Yeah.
And so, doing that and then, walking away from my career, going into ministry, launching this ministry, people's lives depend on it. I
Hmm.
have employees and salaries and money to raise and stuff like that. And it's all good stuff. And
Sure.
it's all stuff that God has called me to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I found with my kids is, the number one reason I think God gives us kids sometimes is because it gives us the biggest opportunities to grow because
Oh, yeah.
they know our buttons, and I'm like, okay, I got some work to do on me because I should be able to have joy and peace in that situation, right? I got nine kids because I must have a lot to do on me. And so God has worked with me over the years in that. But as the ministry continued to grow and grow and grow, I just have all of these compounding stress things piling on my life. In addition to that, at that point in my life, I was one who just ran very fast, and I did not do the things to feed my body
Mm.
nutritionally, and stuff like that. So, you had a girl that was sucking down cokes and running high on that type of stuff. And I ended up jumping out of a truck. Well, it wasn't moving, but we opened the doors. I got out and I went and shut the door of the F-150, and I was talking to my husband and wasn't paying attention. I shut the door. My leg was not out of the way, and it and it dug a big hole in my leg. And
Oh
uh,
no.
probably about 3/4 inch deep, and it was pretty significant. Okay, and so I'm bleeding out in this person's yard on the way to a small group.
Oh
I'm like,
no.
what are we going to do? And so my husband goes inside, gets one of the nurses in our small group, and they go, "Oh, you have to go to the hospital and see about getting stitches." Da, 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 da. So I go to the emergency room, and they actually stitch it up. The long story short is it actually should have never been stitched.
Oh
Uh,
no.
becomes infected, and then I get staph infection, um,
No.
and it continues to spread. My body cannot heal it. I end up with a wound doctor, and the wound doctor has me on all kind of antibiotics. He can't figure out how to get it healed. I'm like 90 days in, and it's getting worse. It's getting bigger. You got all the inflammation. It's painful and all this stuff. And it's my body cannot heal itself. And so I actually got connected with one of my donors that is a excellent nutritionist. And I'm like, dude, can you get this hole in my leg healed? And he was like, yeah. And so we started working on it. And within about 40 days, we got it to close up. But the reality was that I did not have my body could not physically heal itself because my body had to make certain decisions. And the decision that it had to make was, you know, I probably should keep your heart running, and
Mm-hmm.
I probably should keep you breathing. And it's okay if you lose your leg. And it's a
Yeah.
decision my body had to make because it had nothing to run on, and you've got all the stress, and
Yeah.
you've got all these things going on. And so once we got that wound to close, I still had staph infection. It took me probably 10 months to get all that under control. Okay.
Oh.
And when I after working with the nutritionist, after like the 45 days, I looked at him and I said, I must have some things to learn because and I'm like, I probably, because here's the deal. Do I want to be here for the long term? Because if my body can't heal itself, I can't do the things that I need to do. And
Right.
so this is where I realized the importance of stress. Okay. And what it was doing was he said, okay, I want you to fill out the new patient paperwork stuff now. And because we did it totally backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because we were
Mm-hmm.
friends. And I was like, okay. So I fill it out. And one of his questions on there is, hey, um, on a scale of 0 to 10, what is your stress level?
Mm.
10 being like out of control, 0 being none. And I was like, yeah, it's a pretty good day. I'm a 3. And now you can look at all the things in my life and go, you're not a 3. Okay. But when I gave it to him, now he's a very good friend.
Uh-huh.
He said, you are lying. And I said, I'm not lying. And I said, do you say this to like all your patients? I said, I'm not lying. And then he muscle tested me. And
Mm-hmm.
the goal is for your stress level to be under 20. And so he muscle tested me. I tested out at like over 140, I think. Okay. And he goes, see, you are lying. And because I will tell on you, right? And I was like, I don't even know that I'm stressed. The problem is I don't know. I have lived this way so long that I don't even know what not stressed feels like.
Okay, I have to interject right there. I completely understand that. I
Hmm.
feel like that's where I was earlier this year, where it's
Hmm.
like I wouldn't have described myself as stressed out of my mind. Sure, there were moments where I'd get like more triggered or be more irritable or whatever, but those would be classified as those moments. I would just look at the
Hmm.
rest and like you said, like, oh, it's a good day, it's a 3. I would have done the same exact thing. And I just for those listening, I guess I'd just say like lean in a little bit more because I think so many of us operate that way where you don't know the water you're swimming in. You don't know that you're that level of stressed. And sometimes it takes a lot of people have been listening throughout the summer know that I did a 3-week camping trip. and we went to a bunch of national parks and stuff. And coming back was when I really felt the contrast of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I was running on like just all the cylinders, like go, 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 go. And like coming back where after 3 weeks of no responsibility other than to just like go hiking and figure out what we're gonna eat for our next like snack, I just was like, ah, what if I just maintained this? But I wouldn't have felt that without that like
Sure. Hmm.
space. So, anyways, just had to say it. That's very relatable. And I think a lot of us don't know how stressed we actually are. And so I don't
Yeah.
think you were lying. I think you genuinely believed you were a three and didn't know that.
Yeah, so here's the deal. We began to work with some supplements and different things like that to
Hmm.
begin to bring my stress down. Now, I am a go-getter all the time, and we have to understand that if I'm not eating well, there's internal stress that I'm
Right.
creating, and there's mental kind of stress I'm
Hmm.
creating, and then there is the stress that the world is going to throw at us.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna not be a mom of nine, and I'm
Hmm.
not gonna not be a CEO.
Hmm.
So I have got to learn how to be very aware and to manage this. And so we were able to, with some supplements, to kind of bring my stress level down. Okay. And this was the really kind of interesting thing is I didn't even know what my body felt like. Like I could have gone hiking for 3 weeks and I still wouldn't have realized I was stressed. And so, when we got my body to calm down,
Hmm.
um, I was like, I looked at him and I was like, I feel like I need to go like sleep for like 6 months,
Yeah.
uh, because I was like, I never felt this way.
Yeah.
I'm like, it was weird.
Yeah.
And but what I have had to learn is, I have had to learn as I've continued forward is, okay, I can feel now, but I can usually keep, like on the muscle test, I can usually keep my stress down between 40 and 55,
We'll
which is
take
pretty
it.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is pretty good based on my life.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, we'll take it.
Went on a cruise boat all the time, I could probably get it down lower. But lowest I've ever got is 27. So I've never reached the 20 hurdle, but I am way healthier now than I was before. But I can tell when I get out of that 40-50 range,
Hmm.
I can now start identifying very, very quickly when my engine's starting to get hot.
Hmm.
And it is, but I've had to learn,
Hmm.
listen to my body and look for the indicators. So, like, I know that my left leg is going to start swelling.
Hmm.
Um,
Is that the one where you had the injury?
yes, uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah.
So I know that that's gonna. It might be the first thing. So I'm always
Hmm.
looking at my feet, going,
Hmm.
"What you doing down
Hmm.
there?"
Hmm.
And then I know I can start feeling it in my chest
Hmm.
and across my back.
Hmm.
And these are just the places I happen to get it. And
Sure.
when I start getting that, then I know something has got to change. And if
Yeah.
I don't change, I need to look at my eating. Is my eating bad? Have I gotten off somewhere? But most of the time it's something where I've just let something slip and I need to go walking again, or go do this, or make sure I'm building these things in, because it's so important. I have to keep reminding myself it's so important, because I still want to be here to be a young grandma, and I
Yeah.
still want to be here to make impact through Anchor Point and stuff like that. And if I don't, so this self-care, if I don't get this right, then my time here might be short, and
Hmm. Hmm.
that would not be good. And it's interesting because, staff is not easy to get rid of. And about, I don't know, about 9 months ago. So
Uh-huh.
that was about 4 years ago. And
Okay.
about 9 months ago, I'm telling you, I am super healthy compared to then.
Yeah.
I manage, all, supplements and do all kinds of stuff. And I'm very, very attuned to everything. And out of nowhere, my body is kind of detoxing, and I end up with a big, like, blister rash thing on my backside, and it becomes a big hole. and and it's taken me, I got it healed in about 16 weeks, but it's taken me 6 months to get that, because I'm still trying to get all these toxin things out of me.
Ah.
And so we have to be diligent
Mm-hmm.
for that. And, God just put that in a place that was super annoying. And I'm like, okay, God, this is ridiculous. And it's so big, it doesn't, you can't just use like a little band-aid. I'm like, okay, God, normal band-aids don't work. This is pushing it. God has a sense of humor in those things. And it just reminded me how important it is for us. And um, we, especially like, for your audience, which is potentially younger moms and
Mm-hmm.
careers and all these types of things that we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do together, the stress is, in my opinion, the number one thing that we have to work on. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be aware of if we're not having bowel movements, it's because we're stressed, probably. And it's, that if once you don't do that, you shut the whole system down. So
Yeah.
from that, this is where stress is just super, super important for us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I love it's so cool to see what insight God has given you. And this podcast being the vision driven podcast, I think you and I sound kind of similar. I'm someone who, like, okay, God's calling me this. Like, I'm gonna run, fly, go, go, go. And like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this and this and this. And my motivation in a lot of ways for my health is like, look, like, I do believe God has gifted me in these ways, and I do want to show up in these ways. And I want to have that longevity. I want to have that energy. I want to have that health to do it. And, and one of the things that actually motivated me as well to pursue this is my grandparents, precious, precious, God-loving people, they ended up having a kind of the standard American gamut of health issues because of their diet,
Mhm,
diabetes, heart disease,
mhm,
dementia, arthritis, etc. Um, and that's, ultimately what took them out, and that's what robbed them of vitality and their later years. And for me, I'm just like, God, like that's not your design. That's not your heart for us, And bless them, they didn't know, poor things. Like, I wish I knew what I knew, in their later stages decades ago. And, I would have been a little kid or not even born yet. But I wish I could like tell them, like, no, like stop the soda. Like, no, wait, like let's use Whole Foods or whatever. But to your point, I am someone who eats well, tries to get my movement in, tries to get at least 7, if not 8 hours of sleep, etc. However, stress, and while we definitely need to have those elements, and to your point too, like your nutrition was making it difficult for your body to heal, but stress, it's like it's like if you build a tower with all of the right building blocks, stress is just a wrecking ball. Like it doesn't matter how sturdy you built or how what materials you got or how much you invested or whatever, like it's a wrecking ball that comes and it just destroys the structure of your body.
mhm,
And that vision that we have to show up and do what God's called us to do gets undermined. And I don't think it has to.
mhm.
So with that said, how with all the things that you're doing, because it sounds like you're still leading the nonprofit,
Yeah.
you've still got your precious kids and all the grandkids. How are you maintaining this health and keeping such close tabs on your stress?
Yeah, so well, I work really hard at it. So it is a labor, but I do it because I know the importance of it, right?
Hmm.
And but here's the thing that I think we need to understand, especially from a Christian perspective. We have very limited ability to control the stresses that come at us.
Right.
Because the Bible is very clear that the rain is going to come and it's going to come on the house of the righteous and the unrighteous. And it comes not to take us out, it comes to steal the word. Okay. But you and I have got to be able to stand. Okay.
Right.
So things are going to happen. Like some of my children have made wayward decisions, and I had one child that lived on the streets of Houston and was a drug addict for many, many years. Um,
Hmm.
but you know what? That's my child. And
Yeah.
I have to be able to be the mom in that situation for her. And so I have to be able to find joy and peace in everything,
Yeah.
no matter whether it's raining. or whether it's not, right? And so the question for you and I then becomes, we can't control all these things. I couldn't control, I would like to have controlled my daughter being on the streets, but I couldn't. And so I have to look at, what can I control?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the first thing I would tell us is, hey, where do we keep our eyes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because when we look forward too far in the future, we pick up worry and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we look back, we pick up regret and shame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And God is clear over and over and over again. He says, keep your eyes on me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has a scripture that says, he's going to set us a beautiful table where we can dine with him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where he puts it? In the middle of our enemies.
Right, right. Yeah, Psalm
Okay. And
23. Mm-hmm.
I'm like going, you're kidding me. That is where I would put my table. I want my table out on a beach scene or in the woods, wherever it is. But you know why he puts it there? Because it clearly shows that we keep our eyes on him. If we're sitting at the table and we keep our eyes on him, and everything is around us in enemies and they want to throw arrows and stuff like that, when I keep my eyes on him, the arrows drop. Okay. And what eventually happens is the enemies say, what makes her different?
Yeah, yeah.
And I want what she has. So, how can, in the middle of all this crisis, how can she still be calm? How can she still keep her eyes? Why does she have joy even in this situation? And so now we move into what I call, take care of your body. That's good. We can do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we've moved into the headspace.
Yeah.
So our thoughts are upstream of our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is upstream of our actions.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that all of our stress comes because my thoughts
Yep.
are in the wrong place.
Yeah. It's good.
So now, what do I put in my head? What am I listening to? What
Mm-hmm.
music am I listening
Mm-hmm.
to? Am I spending time with God? Am I, memorizing scriptures harder for me, but like, am I meditating on scripture? Am I doing the things that help me figure out how to get the right thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Do I believe, like for me, do I believe that God says I'm healed?
Mm-hmm.
My body can heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
Promise he has for me. Do I believe that I am deeply loved and
Mm-hmm.
cherished
Mm-hmm.
by God? And even in a hard situation, that my daddy God is still for me.
Yeah.
Uh, and so these thoughts cause emotions that cause actions. So when my emotions are not love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self control, when it's not that, then I have an upstream problem.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And so this is the battle for joy and peace in everything, which reduces. That's the best stress reducer we have. We want to pay attention to the body because we can have control there too, but it's the head, that the thoughts that dictate everything. And that's why, I know we're going to talk a little bit about this best strategy, but I love it because it helps us figure our way, but it gets us out of our head too. So,
Yeah, and I think that's such good insight too. And even something I was talking with a friend recently on the subject of thoughts. And I love that, I mean, God gives us everything we need in scripture, and then we have everything in Him. And the verse about taking thoughts captive and acknowledging that sometimes the thoughts aren't even from us. And we
yep,
wrestle with thoughts, and the devil loves to use the thoughts that he puts in there to give us fear, to give us shame, to, a lot of things you listed. And being able to sort and discern through those thoughts is such, I think even just the reminder of the truth that all those thoughts floating around in there don't even belong to you. And even if they did come from you, they don't have to be there either, and there's no shame around them. And the opportunity, and even I guess you could say too, the control element we can have is we can take them, we hold them captive, and we submit them to Jesus and being
yeah,
able to receive what he has in there. And I think that's such a freeing, wonderful reality that I think when we're in the thick of it and when we aren't, like you said, meditating on that truth, taking hold of those promises, taking hold of those tools, those resources we have in the Lord and in the spiritual realm, we can kind of
Mhm.
get caught up, right, in those thoughts and you said those feelings and the behaviors. So I'm super excited to hear you and such a fun name to it because everybody wants to know what's the best way to overcome this.
Yeah.
So, but actually before we get to the best strategy, if you were to identify just a couple of um symptoms, I guess you could say, those warning signs, those red flags for when stress is becoming toxic. Because like your story, and I resonated, like I was like, oh my gosh, I have to say, me too. When you labeled yourself the three and you had no idea. So if someone's in that same place and they might even be listening and they're like, well, maybe, but I really don't think I'm that stressed. What would be those, symptoms that they could be like, oh wait, maybe I am.
Well, here's one thing I would tell us. If you have safe people in your life that you love and you trust and everything like that,
You're like, do you think I'm stressed out of my
I
mind?
mean, like when I ask him, like when I'm with him and I'm like, I'm not stressed, and he's like, yes, you are. And I'm
Yeah.
no, people will tell us because, like, we had a situation where he and I were having a discussion the other day, and I was like, "You're mad at God," and he's like, "No, I'm not," and I'm like, "Yes, you are," and I'm like, "I can clearly see it, but he can't see it,"
Yeah.
and in the stress thing, he could see. He's going, "There's no way you're not stressed."
Yeah.
Goes, look at all this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at
Yeah.
this. And your body can't heal itself, and so he could readily identify it when I couldn't. So be brave and ask someone, do you think I'm stressed?
Yeah. Yeah.
And tell you, and then don't be mad when they tell you you are.
They're like, oh,
But
I'm so glad you asked.
yes, but like if I have a staff member comes to me or we're in a situation and they have this huge overblown reaction to something, I'm like, something ain't right, girlfriend, because you should not be acting like that. So if I don't, so another good indicator is if things are flowing out of me other than the fruits of the spirit, then that should be an indicator.
Hmm.
He will begin to swell or shut down, or I'm not having bowel
Hmm.
movements every day. These are all indicators that something ain't right down here, and
Hmm.
your gut is a
Hmm.
wonderful second brain. When you won't listen to your brain, your gut will tell you. So if your gut's bothering you, it is more likely stress induced things that are causing a lot of these things. I mean, I can't remember where I saw it, but I do a lot more health stuff now. But I mean, if we got stress under control and we pulled sugar pretty much out of our regular day-to-day stuff, it
Yep.
would radically I mean, just those two little things would radically transform um,
Absolutely.
actions. Right.
Well, and I had to give a little more insight too on what you said about the gut being the second brain for those who aren't quite as familiar. Your gut is one part of your microbiome. Your whole body has the microbiome, but within your gut, that's the bacteria of that isolated area. And every single hormone that is produced by your brain is also produced in your gut. So a lot of times when someone is struggling with depression, anxiety, and more of those mental hormonal disorders or challenges, once they take out the sugar and shift their diet and their gut is able to be balanced, often a lot of people, I think, I heard one nutritionist say that it's not a matter of if your gut is imbalanced, it's a matter to what extent. And just because of the nature of, unfortunately, what's quote unquote normal food here, people don't know that what they're eating is undermining their gut so terribly. And so, you mentioning like some people might be like, what? Like whether or not I'm like pooping, like, but it's like
Yeah.
those indicators are super helpful because you should have a regular bowel movement. You should be, and your body's ability to eliminate is one of its core functions of detoxing. And you were mentioning as well, like you had to work out the detox, like the toxins in your body. And so if you're struggling with IBS, you eat and you are like you're constantly having pain, cramps, discomfort, the bloating, any and all of that, would be one of those indicators, and it's not normal. And for someone to think like, oh yeah, my stomach just does that's like, well, like you might be super stressed and it might be
Yeah.
related. So yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, yeah, so those are great indicators, but it's always funny because, I never paid attention to any of this before I
Mm-hmm.
had that injury. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, I am so messed up. So if we can learn these things, many from my story, if you can learn these things while you're 30,
Yeah.
you're going to be great.
Yeah.
But just think about it. If you're not having a bowel movement, you're backing up, and if you back up, eventually you're going to blow up. And so, because it's got to go somewhere. And
Yeah.
how much stress is that on our internal system? We
Right.
just think about it. I have a child that gets backed up periodically, and I'm like, would you like something to like help you like move this stuff? And we need to talk about what you're eating. And he's like, no, I don't want anything. And I'm like, you are going to blow up. You know that, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just part of our
Yeah.
body's design. We have to keep tabs on that. So
Now I
someone, oh, go
now
ahead.
I have started teaching my grandkids early on, and we celebrate those things now. So they're like,
Yeah.
"Come back," and I'm like, "Oh, it's beautiful."
Good job. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, those are some signs that I think would be helpful
Yeah,
for listeners to consider. And honestly, I think your first tip it might be one of the best ones though. Ask your spouse, ask your sibling, ask your best friend. Like that's probably going to be the clearest, quickest indicator
yeah,
to find out. I think that's a great tip. So then
yeah. And then,
two, oh
hey,
God.
I would let me add this to this
Sure,
too. Okay,
sure. Yeah.
so let's say you do ask someone, and they do tell you that. Okay, this is something that I just started doing with God that really has been very helpful to me. Is when someone tells me something like that or any other kind of feedback, I I go to God and I go, God, what does it look like when I am not stressed?
Sure.
What is it?
Yeah.
What does it look like? And I want him to tell me that, okay?
Yeah.
And God says he'll give us wisdom. So if I just sit quietly, he'll generally give me that wisdom. But let's say he doesn't answer that one, then I'll say, okay, God, what does it look like when I'm stressed? He
Yeah.
always answers that one.
It's like
And
this,
I'm
this.
like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, oh, I didn't realize that
Hmm.
so he gives me the answers, and then I'm like, okay, how can I move in the right direction?
Hmm.
He's to give us that wisdom. And
Hmm.
so I just go, if someone tells you you're super stressed, and I just literally go, God, I don't feel like I'm stressed. Why do they say I'm stressed?
Hmm.
And he will tell he's great about that because he wants us to grow because
Hmm.
we're not exhibiting the fruits of the spirit, and he wants us to reflect him, and we should be able to be a mirror of him. And I think we heard it somewhere that if you get squeezed, Jesus ought to come out, and
Amen. Amen.
then we got a problem.
Well, and to just, I guess, highlight what I'm getting from you in saying that, I love that you have this hungry to grow, humble response. Because you get feedback from somebody that sometimes it's the hardest thing for people. We can get defensive. And I could see I'm just painting a scenario like, a young mom who's trying her best. She's at her wit's end. Like, she's trying to manage the house. She's trying to manage the kids. She's also doing XYZ. And, she's like, oh, like, I don't know, maybe I am like stressed out of my mind. Like, and so, hey, like, friend, honey, spouse, whatever, like, am I stressed? And you're like, yeah, you've been like super irritable and like you're this, that, and the other, whatever. Maybe they don't deliver it in the best way, right? And so then
Yeah,
she's like, well,
sure.
why wouldn't I? Like, then it becomes this thing. And so I guess my statement or like just caveat for people, because I do think even, if you do have that whole situation, like it's not irreparable, like that's fine. We want to get the truth out. But I think acknowledging that there's no shame in discovering what God wants you to realize that He already knew. I think
Mhm.
for myself, I've like that reality has been so helpful for me as kind of more of like an achiever who is more inclined to like flog myself and be like, oh no, I messed up, like the
Yeah.
shame. And God's like, Robin, I already knew that about you. Like you just learned that about you, but I already knew that. And I'm so glad that now you're aware because I want to set you free from that. And so
Right.
for people who are like, you might get defensive or you might discover some other feedback or whatever. Just like you said, you take it to God. You don't have to believe it as gospel truth. Like the Lord's going to tell you whether or not that's true. And someone
Yeah.
might be giving you feedback that actually it is inaccurate. And you can hold that and you can say, thanks for the feedback. And you can
Mhm.
take that to the Lord and ask him, like you, I love that line. He's like, so and so just said this. Like, am I this? Like, it's like it can be as like simple and humble as that,
Yeah.
without the drama, without the offense. Again, if it does come up, just allow the Lord to remind you, like, this doesn't have to be an offended, shameful process. It's actually a really big blessing and opportunity for freedom.
Well, and remember, the fact that we even asked, we sought the question out of people
Yeah, yeah.
is that we are choosing
Mm-hmm.
to be courageous
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable and to just go, can you give me some feedback?
Yeah.
That's why I say, who are your trusted people?
Sure.
Who are
Yeah.
people that love you deeply and see great value in you, even when you are a turkey? And that they will stand beside you, right? And they see your value and they know your worth. And feedback is a wonderful thing. We need to lean into feedback all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
anytime I'm getting feedback, I'm just always like, I'm really curious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you say that, and then I'm like, okay, God, you tell me what is
Mm-hmm.
truth I need to incorporate and what I
Mm-hmm.
can let go of. And
Yeah.
thank you for giving me the feedback. And I get, as a CEO, I get lots of feedback.
I'm sure. I actually wonder, have you read the book? Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a great
Mhm.
resource for people to have and look at. It
Yeah. And then the other thing we can do is, like you said, is I just go, okay, Daddy God, thank you for putting a light on that
hmm
because
hmm
you want me to be better. And
Yeah.
Daddy doesn't,
Yeah.
right? And so that good daddy is going to say, yeah, come on, sit in my lap. Let's talk. We need to talk.
Yeah.
And I'll show you how. And I'm like, okay, show me how. And he still
Amen.
sees my preciousness.
Yeah.
He's, and think about it. When you fell in love with Jesus, Jesus didn't say, hey, get your life together. It's not like he's standing here and you're over here and there's this big pile that's got to be taken care of. Jesus doesn't say take care of it. Jesus actually walks around the pile, puts his arm around us, and he
hmm
goes, I love you. And that's a
hmm
big pile, but we're going to do it together. And I'm
Yeah.
praise God because I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. No, it's
So,
so true. So then this best strategy that you have, circling back to that because we've left everybody hanging on the edge. What is your best strategy on how women can practically reset and refocus? Let's just say that they're even like they haven't even asked their spouse yet. They're like, you know what? I'm convinced. Yeah, I'm super stressed. Like, what do I do?
yeah. Okay. So this doesn't just apply to stress, it applies to anything. Okay. Because I use this all the time. But I wanted something really simple. Okay. So the first piece is the B stands for to breathe. Okay. It's very
Amen.
simple. And I don't mean shallow breathing, I mean like breathe in through the nose, hold it for four, fill your diaphragm up, out through your mouth. And usually when I'm doing that, I will say, Holy Spirit, work in me. Because this
Amen.
just
Yeah.
kind of you down or in Jesus' name, whatever. And it just helps me center. But the other really important thing that it does, let's say you're in a extremely tense situation at the moment. Okay. Generally, we are operating from the lower part of our brain, which is our amygdala, which is where our emotional responses are. Those are typically not good. Okay. Those are like, I get a text and I want to fire off a response, and people say, well, write the response, but don't hit it,
hmm
send, and then come back and look at it. That's your amygdala talking. When you
hmm
come back, your prefrontal cortex is engaged, which is where your thinking can happen. And that is where you can make good choices.
hmm
You got your whole brain working for you. So when you go back and look at that text, you're like, that would be terrible if I'd have said that,
That was gonna go real bad. Yeah.
so breathing tells us one, you're alive. Two, it kind of calms us down. And three, it gets us in the right part of our brain. Okay. So sometimes that's all I have the opportunity to do at the moment. And I actually think learning to breathe in most situations is our most powerful tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if we can do it right then, or if we need to do it later, it doesn't matter. The next piece is evaluate. Okay. And what I like to encourage people to do is dump all the junk in your head out onto paper
Yeah.
or record it, whatever. Just get it out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be great because when you get it out of your head, then all of these voices or tapes that are playing can stop. Okay. And once we get it on paper, you'll be able, I don't even really want you to do much with it at that point. I just want you to get it there. Okay. The next step is step back. That is go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Leave your list alone. Go do something else. Go take a walk around the block. Get a cup of coffee. Read a book. Pray. Do something. I do encourage people to try and do something a little more physical because our brain kind
Yeah.
of works
Yeah.
better if we get our whole body moving right. And don't even think about it. Just go and see how many things, like when I walk with my grandkids, we try and figure out how many things God has made outside. And so we just start listing them, or whatever. But do something that kind of gets your whole brain off of it. 10 minutes, an hour, the next day, whatever it is. Okay. Then when you come back, what you're going to do is you're going to figure out what your next best step is going to be. You're going to figure out how to take action. So you're going to look at the list and you're going to be able to clearly go, that's emotional. That is, that is emotional. That was what's going on. This is just a feeling. This is fact at the moment, and everything from that perspective. So you're going to begin to see, okay, this is really stuff I can push to the side. And this is the stuff that I need to do. So I was with a friend the other day and he was just like, my life's out of control and freaking out and everything. And I was like, I need you to breathe, and then I'm like, all right, just tell me everything that's going on in your head. And so he starts dumping it out all on paper. And you know what it was? It was two things that were bothering him. And I'm like, you're freaking out over the two things? And he's like, yeah, if those were under control, that would be so much better. And I'm like, okay. But he had taken up so much bandwidth in his head with all of this worry and anxiety and everything that it seemed like it was 500 things. I thought we would at least get to 10, but it was two. And I was like, okay, why don't we talk about how we can deal with this one? And let's make a plan. And
Yeah.
then let's talk about this other one. And so the take action piece is figure out what the next best thing you can do is. Okay. Not the next right thing, because sometimes when we say right, it causes us to freeze. So what's the next best thing? And like after I lost the boys, my next best step may have been like pulling the covers off of my head, getting out of the bed, brushing my teeth, and walking around for a few minutes, and then getting back.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was a good, but here's the deal. I didn't stay stuck. I made a positive step, right? And then the next day I can make another positive step. And so this is what's going to teach us how to survive and how to thrive. But it's breathe, evaluate, step back, and then figure out how to take action. And God, we can trust that God's in that process. But if we get the stuff out of our head, then
Mm-hmm.
we name it, therefore we can tame it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful. And then what is the next best thing? Just one thing, not way down the road, just literally, what can I do today? And it big or small, it doesn't matter. And each one of ours will be different. And it will allow us to figure our way. And that, getting that stuff out of your head and figuring out the next positive, best step that you can do really reduces that level of stress, whether it's
Yeah.
kid or whatever. I tell people, like, I'm a CEO. I usually can get out of the why question pretty fast. But the other day, a couple of years ago, I got a beautiful employee lawsuit. And
Mm.
so that's eternal, external stress that I have no
Yeah.
control over. And where did I go first? Why this and why that? Blah.
Yeah.
I stopped that and I was like, okay, that's not going to work. That's going to take me somewhere bad. And I just breathed and kind of went through this process. And after I got through with the process, I was like, you know, I probably should call the attorney. That's probably that's probably a good next step. And
Great next step.
yeah, and so that's what I did. And I'm like, okay. And then I began to figure my way. And the powerful thing of all this is one, it allows us to remain calm and to not lose joy and peace because we actually give those up. Those are
Hmm.
ours to have, and we give those up.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's so powerful because people are watching
Hmm.
how I walk through these things.
Right.
My staff watches how I handle these things. Do I flip out? Do I do these things? My kids are watching. And if we can learn to do these things, then we can begin to teach people how they can walk through their own hard stuff. And that is really truly a gift we can give. And they watch it more than we teach it to them. So
Yeah.
that's how that best strategy kind of works from that standpoint.
I think this is brilliant. I think it has God all over it in terms of his wisdom, and even the examples you gave are all so relatable. And I think there's so much. I, I can think of so many situations, and it's funny because I keep talking about kind of how like coming back from this camping trip, I feel like I've been able to slow down. I actually feel like I've become more aware of when, if I like, without knowing I feel like you're naming my experience. And so you're saying like I can feel when I'm going out of that like certain stress threshold. I was like, that's how it feels. Like I can like I feel like I had a reset from that. And even
Mhm,
too, I can feel that amygdala is like the tense feelings. And if I just wait, it's
mhm,
crazy how much stress you can avoid
mhm,
by just waiting and being and kind of like letting your actual like conscious prefrontal cortex be in the driver's seat. And it's just like, oh wait, like that's actually like the example you gave of the guy too, like it's just the two things. And so it's like, wait a second, like this actually isn't that big of a deal. And if that actually goes the way that I was concerned about, that's actually not that big of a deal. And like to just give yourself that space. This is so good. And I love how practical it is.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
so practical.
I had to make something I could remember and something to figure out. But that breathe thing, like if you think about like some of your listeners have like young kids and stuff like that,
Hmm.
are like throwing a tantrum and they're losing.
Hmm.
And, literally, if you and I can just, what's fixing to happen is all that stuff is hitting trigger buttons on me. That stuff I need to work on. So, you know, when I have some time, I need to realize that I can have joy and peace in this situation, and something in me is getting triggered, and I can't take these little kids through their growth process if I've not gone through my own. So that's a
Right.
powerful learning, right? In the
Right.
middle of the situation, okay, what I need to know is those feelings that I just had are my shark waters kind of
Mm.
getting lit up. And so what's happening to me while my kid's losing it, like they're just on the floor throwing a tantrum in Walmart, whatever. And I'm going, I'm so embarrassed. Everybody's looking at me. Da, 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 da. Okay, so what's starting to happen to me is I've waded into my shark waters, and it's like dun 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 dun. They kill me, and then I lose it. My kids lose it. I lose it. My kids lose it, and everybody gets hurt. At that
Right.
point, it's a whirling tornado that we have to land, and
Right.
nobody comes out unscathed. And
Yeah.
so for us, literally, when we start to feel kind of that shark music and us starting to lose it, if we just remember to breathe and
Right.
take a deep breath, then we can trick our brain into flipping
Right.
back to the prefrontal cortex
Right.
versus because what your brain is like, it's going to lose it. And when
Yeah.
it does, it's
Yeah.
hard to get it back down. But if I can breathe and literally
Hmm.
go, man, I just entered my shark waters.
Hmm.
Then I can go, I can figure out how to deal with this now. Because
Right.
now I can still think, right? And I'm going, okay, it's not that big a deal. The people really aren't
Hmm.
looking. they're actually, they might be looking at me, but they're going, "Hey, I'm so glad it's her, not me."
Right?
They're
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, oh
mom.
my gosh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're like, they're doing their thing, but it's just so powerful. So that's why I go, "Hey, if you can only get one thing right, get breathe right." And
Yeah.
then when you have some calm moment, come back, because God is gracious to let us, remember, and you can usually pull those feelings up pretty easily, and you can work through the rest of it. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to all happen at once, but the breathing is just so powerful. Someone's cutting you off on the road. If you just breathe and I can come back, and my thought is, they must have a real emergency. I probably need to pray for that person, because they wouldn't be driving like that if.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm like going, okay, one, I'm praying, and two, I didn't lose my joy.
Yeah, I think that's so good. Perspective, I mean, man, perspective changes everything. And
Yeah.
taking that moment to breathe creates that opportunity. And for anybody who's like, that's just too simple, like really just like breathing, it's scientifically proven the only guaranteed and quickest way to shift from that amygdala to the prefrontal cortex to go from the stress state to the rest state is the deep breathing.
Mhm.
It is, and it's a real thing. So I think that's great that that's something you emphasize.
And I work with trauma kids all the time, okay, and the ministry that we do. And when they're losing it, and I'm sitting down there with them, and I'm like, buddy, I need you to breathe. I need you to do a deep breath. Breathe with me. It's the thing that I say to that guy that was struggling with all the stuff in his head. I said, like, I need you to breathe for a minute. Just breathe, and then we'll be able to do that. So it is way more powerful than we think. And praise God, it's simple. Because Lord, I need to use it more than once a day. So
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, Debbie, I think the listeners have been so blessed by what you've shared in your story. If they want to get more from you, if they want to hear more from you and learn more about this amazing nonprofit that you have, where can they find you? Where can they get access to more of what you're up to?
Sure. Well, first of all, I do have a free gift for your listeners. I always like to do this. Is my Heart of Legacy book, Living a
Oh,
Focused, Faithful,
cool.
and Fearless Life. That is free to you guys. And so you to get that book, and it's a wonderful next step because it tells you more of my journey, but it has the best strategy in it. It has all kinds of in the center, just life-changing things that will rock your little world. You just go to theheartoflegacy.com and you can get it for free. And then if you want to know more,
Amazing.
yeah, so that's a free gift. So don't miss out on that, because I just want to spread the word, and I want people, because if we learn to live our legacies now, we will leave lasting legacies. And that
Yeah.
is all it's taught me over the years is be intentional, live, learn and make an impact now so that it leaves something well beyond after I'm gone. And then if you want to know more about my teaching and coaching and all that type of stuff that I do, that is at thedebbie.simmons.com, and all the social media handles are there and all that good stuff. So that's the two places that I would go.
Nice. Thank you so much for that gift. That's amazing. When I read the title, I was like, oh, that sounds so good. I'll definitely include all these links in the show notes. So those are listening. All you got to do is go as far as this episode and you'll be able to have access to that.
Yeah.
Debbie, thank you so, so much for your vulnerability, your humility. Just even, I mean, I feel like I'm thanking you for the ways that you've just continued to pursue and let God do what he's done in your life. Like, I feel so grateful to have this conversation with you, and I'm grateful that the listeners have gotten to hear your
Mhm.
story and what you've offered here today. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to the Vision Driven Health Podcast today. I hope this episode inspired you, supported you, and blessed you in some way. If it did, it would mean the world if you would leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast and share this episode on your social media. The more reviews and shares this gets, the more people can be blessed and encouraged in creating a Jesus-centered, sustainable, healthy lifestyle. If you want to hang with me and other Jesus-loving ladies who are creating healthy habits that last, be sure to join my free Facebook group, the Made Well Mastermind. Use the link in the show notes to join. Be blessed with hope, joy, and health. I'll see you next week.